From the Mountain Democrat and Placerville Times, January 5th, 1917. Deputy Cook cows woman prisoner. Polly Smith, who came here ostensibly to take a position cooking in the Camino vicinity, fell by the wayside last Saturday, and the combined efforts of Sheriff Hand and Deputy Cook were necessary to getting her to the Placerville County Jail. Deputy Cook Tuesday chaperoned her thoroughly cowed prisoner to the outgoing motor and induced her to buy a ticket to Sacramento. Polly, say the police, showed by her breath and actions that she had been drinking. To substantiate this, they found a bottle of whiskey which she had concealed in her clothing. Deputy Sheriff Lulu showed her pluck and daring in this case, and as matron of the county jail, she went to the woman's cell to feed and care for her. Polly was a much bigger woman than Miss Cook and raised her hand as if to strike. Then came some angry words and a show of fists from the deputy, which induced Polly to remain a model prisoner since.
Have any of you seen any boys and girls hereabout with blackberry stains on their hands, their faces, or their shirts? If so, you tell them that Deputy Sheriff Cook is looking for them. Stealing is stealing, whether it's robbing a bank or pilfering my blackberries. Mind you, there are consequences. Well, manners, are they not? I should introduce myself to you. I am Lulu Belle Cook. Deputy Cook to you, the first female appointed as Deputy Sheriff in Dorado County. Sheriff Charles Hand appointed me Deputy Sheriff after my father, Gilbert Cook, the previous sheriff, had died. My father was a great man, respected by everyone in the community, but he fell ill, which weighed heavily upon him. In 1912, we found him dead, back behind the house in the shed. It was devastating. His funeral was one of the largest Dorado County had ever seen, attended by hundreds of people. Shortly after my father's death that May, Sheriff Hand appointed me as Deputy Sheriff. I was 25 years old and served proudly through 1918. The county at that time needed a female deputy to handle the women around here who got into trouble. As well, it was required for a female officer to transport women prisoners to San Quentin. Yes, back then women were incarcerated there. But nowadays I understand that you have separate prisons for men and women. Oh, well, that strikes me as a fine idea. Well, one time, Sheriff Hand and I were transporting Mary Weston of Indian Diggins down to San Quentin. She had been sentenced to serve 10 years for assault with a deadly weapon with intent to murder a local man, with the provision placed by the court that with her good behavior she could be out in 6 years, or possibly paroled even sooner. Well, surprisingly, Sheriff Hand and I found her quite talkative and unbothered by the trip down there, even though we were taking her to prison. If anything, that showed me how unpredictable people can be. In addition to chaperoning female prisoners, it was also required that I be present for interviews, interrogations, and depositions. And occasionally you would even find me delivering meals to the inmates in jail. Rarely was there a dull moment. I recall escorting Myrtle Hart to the girls' home on that long journey down to Riverside. And you already know about my confrontation with Polly Smith It was important that she knew who was in charge, and it wasn't Polly. No siree. No siree. Oh, and by the way, I also arrested men, too, as it was needed. Another duty I had was to take those people who had been assaulted, people who were inebriated, or otherwise incapacitated, to the home of Dr. Jean Babcock, where she would care for them, or, as the case may be, give them time to dry out until they were well enough to go to jail or to be able to sit for an interview or a deposition. Now, Dr. Jean Babcock was the first female doctor in Placerville, and she quite readily assisted us with handling deceased victims, as well as providing care to those prostitutes up on Reservoir Street that had been assaulted. She would bring them into her home, provide a room for them there, care for them until they were well, and then give each one $50 and a Bible, and then place them on a train or a bus, hopefully headed to someplace much, much safer. In 1919, when I was 32 years old, I was honored with the distinction of being the oldest female deputy sheriff in all of California. It was in the newspapers throughout the entire country. Never have I felt so proud to have been able to have served this fine county and its citizens. So, shall we go back to the very, very beginning? I was born in 1887 in Bear Creek, which is up near Georgetown. At still quite a young age, my family and I moved here to Placerville, to a home at the corner of Sheridan and Main Streets. After my father died, my mother, my sister, my brother, and I continued living there, and I was still living in that same house until I died in March of 1976. I'm buried right here in Placerville's Union Cemetery, right next to my father Gilbert. But after all this time, there never has been a marker for my grave. Not that I ever expected to be remembered as such, but I am grateful for the recently placed interpretive sign that does honor my story there. Throughout my life, I enjoyed participating in local and far-reaching activities. I was a staunch suffragette, campaigning vigorously for the right to women to vote in our country. And for over 50 years, I was a member of Placerville's local Marguerite Parlor of the Native Daughters of the Golden West, espousing education and good works within our community. I sometimes like to think that all of my participation in activities and organizations, both near and far, as well as my work as deputy sheriff, helped pave the way for women who serve our community today. Although I was never a member of Placerville's Shakespeare Club, they did remember me. And they even acted out my life on stage one time at one of their events. Oh, I wish I could have seen that one. I never married, nor did I have any children of my own, but I always believed in the importance of helping families by steering those children around me on the right path to good citizenship and behavior within our city here. Especially if it involved raiding my blackberries. Long have I encouraged parents to bring their misbehaving children to me to spend a stint in our county jail. Now, back then, the jail cells were located underneath the courthouse, and they were not a pretty sight. 1 hour in one of those jail cells would convince those children to make better decisions and to correct their ways. I remember one little girl. She had quite the potty mouth. She learned from her little friends how to throw rocks, how to spit on people, such unladylike behavior which quite upset her mother. Well, you need to know that that little girl needed 2 stints in our county jail in order for her to learn her lesson. And she was only 5 years old. She was an only child and perhaps a bit indulged, but to this very day, her daughter tells the story of her mother. I'll bet she has very good manners. Well, back to my blackberries. My blackberries hang beautifully over the walkway in front of my home. Those lush, purple, bright fruits, which are so tempting to the children that walk by, who love to pick and eat them. Well, you could tell me, well, just why not trim those bushes back or just cut them out completely? That way they wouldn't serve as a temptation to those children. I suppose I could do that. But what would be the point? Those children would not learn respect. No. Better to let those berries hang beautifully over my walkway in front of my home. Besides, those berries aren't the only temptation for those children. Those miscreants love to throw things into my yard, slide up and down the hills and the berms and the snow where they should not. So, I chase after them with a broom, twice a day. Once in the morning at 8 o'clock when they're going to school, and then once again in the afternoon when they're coming home from school. But you think I'm quite mean, chasing after children with a broom, shaking my broomstick in the air at them? Well, mind you, nobody ever gets hit. But you need to know that their mothers do the exact same thing. And I have lived here long enough to know that they probably learned it from me. So, the next time you see any children hereabout with blackberry stains on their faces, their shirts, or their hands, you tell them that Deputy Sheriff Cook is looking for them. And perhaps you could encourage them to give a sincere and polite apology in order to avoid 1 hour in you know where.